Hi everyone, it's Chris from Winding Rainbows. Welcome back, or if you're just finding us, hello. We're here to put up a few videos with tips to hopefully help with your case sewing. And these are based off of our sewing patterns and what I found works for me. There's always, of course, other ways of doing things, and these are just my own personal tips or methods that I use when I'm personally sewing my cases together. We did start with the final step in our first video, which is the outside binding, since that's been the part that I've got the most requests for assistance with is the outer binding. So we did start there. So we kind of started at the end and we're going back to the beginning now. But today I'm going to talk about the outside of your case, or the base of everything. I have my lining, my outside sewn together per whatever pattern instruction that you're using, and the foam that is in the middle of everything. And this is going to be based on if you're not quilting your piece. I'll go over the quilting if you're going to be quilting in a little bit. I also want to show you the alternative if you choose not to have a front spine and back and you just want one piece. I'll talk about that here in just a little bit as well. I'll go over this first. I have my foam piece here, and I prefer to use the Annie's Soft and Stable for my cases. I feel like it's the best quality. There are other options. You can choose, you know, what works best for you. This is just what I like. And I wanted to say something I discovered recently was, even though the packages you buy are marked 58 inches wide, a lot of times it'll be 60, and I wasted a lot of foam not realizing that in the beginning. But and it's, you know, you always want to measure and make sure that that's how yours is, but I've been pretty lucky in getting 60 inches across. And it does allow for you to cut, you know, three full case lengths from one strip. Before, I kind of was having a lot of waste because I didn't realize I had that 2 extra inches to work with. So that's just a tip I wanted to throw out there. If you're making a lot of cases, you should be able to get 3 cuts from a strip. And don't just assume it's 58, because a lot of times it will be wider. But anyhow, you'll just want to put your lining piece, and this is the piece that shows through the center of your case when it's open on the inside. Just line it up well with your foam. And then I'm not going to actually spray today because I don't want to get it on the good side of my cutting mat. But I just fold one side over in half, and then I use the 505 spray and spray this well. And I just want to talk about this for a second. This is what I recommend because I personally am very sensitive to a lot of chemicals and perfumes and that sort of thing. Like highly sensitive. And this doesn't bother me at all. And so this is the one that I recommend if you're worried about that at all. And it sticks well, but it doesn't overstick. I've used some that overstick and it's just a sloppy mess. So this is what I prefer and what I do recommend in my patterns. The other one that is okay as well, I believe, is called Spray and Bond. It has the purple emblem on the front. I believe it's linked in my Amazon storefront if you want to see that one as well, because it is sometimes more readily available to places like us that don't have a lot of stores to buy things. That one seems to be easier to find, and I don't have any trouble with that one either. I just prefer this, and if you're using this a lot, I suggest getting the 14.7 ounce can, because it just goes a lot further for the price than the smaller cans do. So that's what I use. So anyhow, spray this well, and I spray on the foam, not the fabric, and it probably doesn't matter, but that's what I do. Fold your lining back over and just smooth it out super well and make sure it's laid down nice and tight. I've had it slip before when I just used a little bit, and you really want things to stay stable when you're sewing these cases together. And then just open your other side, do the same, spray it well on the foam, lay it back, making sure everything's lined up well, smooth it out really well. And if you have edges that are loose, you can put a little more spray on there. And Ashley uses a large piece of cardboard underneath when she's spraying, or you can do it outside, however works for you the best. And then I wanted to mention on the lining, if you're using a directional print, make sure when you flip this over that it's going the way you want it, because I've learned that lesson too and had to unpick a lot of stuff. So this one's non-directional, so I don't have to worry about it. But then you'll just turn it over and do the same. Here's my front piece all sewn together, and line it up on your edges with your, make sure this is laying how you want it and smooth down. And then just do the same thing. I just kind of put my finger here to find center, and I fold it back and spray it well. And you'll want to make sure this seam gets laid flat and don't twist or anything on you, so that it's nice and flat. But spray this well again on the foam, and then lay this down. And like I said, if this gets bunched up underneath or something, you can just pull it back up and flatten that back out. And again, just smooth it out real well, make sure it's adhered nicely, and then do the same. And once this first side sprayed, this will stop when you pull it. So just pull it to where it stops, spray again real well. Pull your back over, smooth it well, and just make sure everything's really adhered nicely, because it really helps when you're sewing to have this sticking well. And then if you're using a piece with the back, spine, and front, you'll want to line your center of your spine. For me, I just usually eyeball where the center is and find a line on my mat and go from there, and then adjust it as necessary. But the important thing is making sure you have the same amount from your center on each side. And you can, well, hopefully you can see here, I have just in from each of these on each side. So this line will be my center. And then check it above, and it's the same up there. So I'm going to use this line as my guide when I place my tape. And I do like to use the skinnier masking tape, or you can use painter's tape, whatever you choose to use. This one, I believe, is marked 0.7 inches on the package when you buy it. And it really honestly doesn't matter, but on some of my other cases, the spine is smaller than this one. And I find this one just is easier to use, but you can use what you like. And I have a piece torn here that I'm gonna use just because it's already torn. But you'll take your tape and line it up on that line and make sure it's sticking down good for you. And again, your tape's lined up with your line here and up here. And then you're going to take it to your machine and you're going to sew right down the right side of the spine. And that'll give you the center of your case. And I use 2.9, 3.0 stitch length, whatever works best for you. And if you can reduce your pressure foot pressure on your machine, I would raise that up a little bit. It does, in all areas of case making, it just helps things slide through a little bit easier. And then once you get this line sewn, then I just take the tape off, and then I sew just inside this outer edge of your spine on both sides, a quarter, eighth of an inch, whatever you like. I would say mine's probably an eighth of an inch, but you can go a quarter. It doesn't really matter as long as you've got both your lines. And then that gives you your spine, you know, when you fold your case, you'll have a nice close, I guess. And I wanted to briefly talk about if you're using one piece of fabric instead of a back spine front. This is another sample that I'm working on for a new pattern. And this one it's not going to match my foam because it's not the same pattern, but I just wanted to show you briefly. If you're using one piece, you'll just do the same thing. And I'm kind of using these motifs as my center to create a spine just because it's there. So I would line this up on my foam, which this again is not cut to size because this does not go with this piece, and then find your center on a line. Top and bottom, and then once again, take your tape and place it down the center of what you want to be your center. And then sew again, just as I showed you in the last one, to create your very center point. And then what I do, let me grab a ruler quick, is from the line that you have just sewn for your center. Well, you can remove your tape, it might be easier. So you'll pretend like this is sewn, and then I come in about 3/4 of an inch from that center line and lay my tape again. So this will be in 3/4 of an inch from my, we're just pretending here, so 3/4 of an inch to the right of your center line and 3/4 of an inch to the left of your center line. Again, put your tape, sew your line, move it over 3/4 of an inch, put your tape, sew your line, and that will create a spine for you. Even though you don't technically have the fabric to guide you, it will still give you the same effect. And I also wanted to mention, if you're quilting, which this piece will be quilted, you'll want to increase your lining, your foam, and your outer, the front of your case. You'll want to increase that. I do 3/4 of an inch to an inch larger than what's stated as the trimmed size that you're using in the pattern, to allow for shrinkage, you know, when you quilt. The one thing I did want to say is, if you're sewing this method with the spine front and back and you are quilting it, you don't want to increase the width of your spine that the pattern calls for. You'll only increase the height. It's the left and the right that you'll want to increase the width on just a little bit, and then the height, obviously, because when you're done quilting, it'll shrink it a little bit and it'll still allow you room to trim to the size you need for your pattern. And I personally used about 2.5 inches apart, grid style quilting, crosshatch, whatever you'd like to call it. And I find when I make everything 3/4 to an inch bigger total, it still, with the 2.5 inch line spacing, it still gives me enough room to trim to what I need it to be in the final stage. So that, I think, is about all. As far as, this is probably the easiest or the fastest step of the case making, is assembling your foam base. I'll link to my pattern shop down below, to our Instagram, and I'll also put a link to my Amazon storefront, just again so you can see actual supply examples if you'd like to do that. And I will be back with more tips in other parts of the case, the inner pockets and such, as I get to them. Look out for those, and We do have a newsletter. If you'd like to subscribe, you can find that on our website at windingrainbows.com is a link. I'll see if I can put a link below as well. If you'd like to be notified when we have new patterns or new things available that we've sewn, or new videos, things like that. So if you're interested, there is that as well. And I appreciate you stopping by, and we will talk again soon.